Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum.
Hey guys, welcome to this new exciting episode of VeriTalks. I'm Jordan here. You got Jeff, Scott, Andrew, and Jane. And we've got a really awesome interview coming up for you. This is actually Jeff and Andrew's interview, and it's with a Super Bowl champion. His name is Ben Utecht. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about your friend Ben?
Yeah, Ben's a great guy. He's got a beautiful family. He's got all daughters. And You're going to hear a little bit more about that and his passion for his family. But he's also a great athlete, as you just mentioned, Jordan. And he's a Super Bowl champion, won with the Indianapolis Colts. Pretty cool. He'll share a little bit about that as well. But he's just also, what people may not know about him is he's an author and an incredible singer. We're excited for you guys to be able to hear Ben's story and for you to be able to hear this new episode of VeriTalks.
Yeah, and Jeff and Andrew got to sit down and talk with him and hear a little bit more about his life. And we're excited for you to get to listen in to their conversation. So here is our new friend, Ben Utecht, on the latest episode of VeriTalks.
Well, so you're in Minnesota
right
now, correct? Did you say it's snowing there?
Well, the last 2 days, yep. So we've got snow on the ground, but it's starting to melt a little bit. So
that's crazy.
I mean, we're used to it, but man.
So that means your 4 girls are inside. I know you're an active family and you like to probably be outside, but do they like the snow, or are they in right now?
Well, yeah, they love the snow, but we had about 2 to 3 weeks of really relatively great weather, right? Everything melted. We were kind of hanging out in the upper 50s, low 60s, outside playing every day. And then all of a sudden just bam, just April blizzard, right? And we had to go into the boxes in the basement and get out all their snow gear again. And they had a couple of snow days. But we're making it, man. I mean, all of us are going through the ringer right now, and it's tough. But you try to find the silver lining in it, and you get a lot of time with family now, which is a huge blessing in a lot of ways as well.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, that's great. Well, I got 5 questions I wanted to run by you real quick, and all I want is for you to just give me your one-word answer or the quickest thing that comes to your mind, and we'll go from there. Sound good? Sound good? All right, yep. First one. What's your favorite food?
Probably steak and mashed potatoes.
Do you have a favorite place that you like to go get steak, or you like to prepare your own steak?
Man, I love to grill. There's a couple. Minnesota is kind of a big foodie state. We end up on a lot of those TV shows, and so we've got a lot of great restaurants. There's some incredible steak places. My favorite is a place called J.D. Hoyt's downtown Minneapolis, which has a little bit of a Cajun feel to it. But
nice.
Steak and mashed potatoes, man. It's just
J.D. Hoyt's. We're writing that down right now, just so we can have that next time we're in Minnesota. Yes. All right. What show are you binging right now on Netflix or something else?
Golly, I just finished Vikings off the History Channel. You guys, holy cow!
I haven't seen that one yet.
It is awesome.
Who is your favorite author?
Oh man, that's a tough, because I'm kind of all over the board, but probably.
Or maybe it could be a podcast, or maybe your favorite thing to.
Gosh, well, listen. I think the author that I probably go to the most on a daily basis over the course of a year it's an old school devotional author, a guy named Oswald Chambers.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And he did a book called My Utmost for His Highest.
Yes.
And if you're someone that just likes to be challenged, like intellectually and philosophically, like on a kind of one of those levels where every paragraph gets read at least 3 times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For it to finally set in.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of my go-tos.
All right. Your favorite dessert? Come on.
My mom's homemade chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Is it like a double chocolate
Homemade.
cake?
It's like it's this it's kind of this like cream cheese chocolate cake. It's
man.
so moist and dense. And then she does this. She like whips. She like whips these egg whites, and then mixes it with this stuff called Carol syrup, which is this really, you know what I'm talking about?
What?
Yeah. So you got to boil the Carol syrup, and it just becomes
Like
where it becomes like stringy.
Oh,
So yeah,
man.
right. Like almost like kind of like cotton candy, stringy. And then you add the beaded egg whites in there, and it becomes almost like a marshmallow type
Golly.
of. Oh man, I'll tell you what.
I'm getting that recipe.
Oh,
Hey, Mom, if you're
dude.
listening, please.
bro, it's amazing.
That's awesome. All right. Now this could be tricky, but who is your favorite athlete of all time?
Favorite athlete of all time. Oh my gosh,
It's like asking what's your favorite song, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Gosh, and I'm pretty biased, right? Obviously.
Come on.
But I would probably in the athletes that I have experienced, it'd be hard for me to not say Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
It just because I just having lived through it and played on another team with an incredible quarterback in Carson Palmer and against guys like Tom Brady and the list goes on there. And we could talk about that more later, but there's just, it's hard to come across a more professional human being.
Right.
That,
hey, you can't go wrong with Peyton Manning.
You just can't go wrong with Peyton Manning. Golly, I know.
Well, that's,
yeah.
I think that's awesome. That's a great transition because for a lot of people who are watching today, they know you, they may not know you. So I thought maybe it'd be really cool just to kind of let people know about your career. Now you spent, was it five years in the NFL? 6 years?
Yeah, 6 years. Yep.
6 years. Most of that time with the Indianapolis Colts, and then at the end of your career with Cincinnati Bengals. Tell us a little bit about how you got into football. Was that something you always wanted to do, or was that just kind of a God thing?
I grew up in a really interesting family environment. Athletics and the arts were priorities. My dad was a vocal music major to be a choir teacher before he became a pastor, and then my mom was a singer. And my dad was also had an instrumentalist major as well. So music was just like, it was a huge foundation in the family, and and also sports. And so I just grew up. I grew up as a 3-sport athlete in Minnesota with football, hockey, and baseball, and really over the course of middle school and high school, football especially just really began to kind of be the sport where all of the pieces of the puzzle just were coming together. My size, my speed, catching ability, and that's where the opportunities just came. And so we just continued to kind of, follow in those footsteps as they were presented. I love being a part of a team. I think it doesn't matter whether it's, singing with a group of 5 guys or being on a roster of 53. There's something about being on a team that just is so special, and that was one of the things that really drew me towards playing a great team sport like football.
Yeah. Our vlog, our podcast is kind of focused on the big idea. And one of the things that I noticed, it's talking about the joy and the struggle of pursuing those big ideas. So when you graduated high school, you went on to University of Minnesota, played college ball there.
Yep.
2004, you graduate senior at the University of Minnesota. I'm sure you had big ideas to be drafted and wanted to be drafted, but that didn't happen. You were unrestricted free agent. You were undrafted. So what was going through your mind at that time to get yourself to the next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was probably one of the most challenging times in my life because I went from being a potential first round draft pick to not getting drafted at all due to a really serious abdominal injury that I sustained my senior year. I was playing the Wisconsin Badgers, and I ran a corner route, and as I turned to catch the ball, I felt and heard popping all across my lower abdomen, and I ended up tearing the abs from the pubic bone. It was a serious injury. And I got
Whoa.
carted off the field, and and just like that, poof, in one moment. You go from being, I was a top 3 tight ends in the country and looking at a potential first, early second round draft pick, and it just all disappeared. And that was a very challenging time, but really kind of led to my miracle story of how I got to the NFL, and that was through my relationship with Tony Dungy. About a month or so before the NFL draft, I was speaking at an Athletes in Action banquet with Tony Dungy on the University of Minnesota campus, and I was still injured, and I had gotten up in front of about, I don't know, there's about 500 or 700 alumni that were at this event, and I introduced Coach, and I said, hey, Coach, if you really care about the University of Minnesota, if you truly care about it, you're going to draft me in the upcoming draft. Just like really trying to put a lot of pressure on him.
Right.
And everybody got a kick out of that. And he was gracious to respond. And he got up and said, Ben, we drafted a first round tight end last year with Dallas Clark out of Iowa. And we're not really going to be looking for tight ends this year. Then he paused as if he was being downloaded something. I'd like to think that he was having a conversation with God in this moment on stage. And he came back to the mic and he said, I'm going to make a promise to you. If for some reason you slip through the cracks, if for some reason you don't get drafted, I promise you I'll be the first person to call. And so you fast forward 2 days of the draft, my name doesn't get called. I find out that all the teams red flagged me because of the injury, right? I was too much of a risk. So I'm driving up to my agent's office with my dad, holding back tears, think it's all over. Don't really know what I'm going to do with my life. And all I have left is the free agent market. And the free agent market opens, and about 20 seconds later, the phone on my agent's desk rings, and I pick it up, and who do you think it was? It's Tony Dungy. First person to call. And it was Tony.
You put that little
right
seed in his ear, and it stuck.
Yeah, and the rest is history. He called with our Hall of Fame general manager, Bill Polian, and they said, look, we know how talented you are when you're healthy. We actually have a lot of experience with your injury, and we want to send you to the top doctor in the country. We want you to be a Colt. We don't even want you to think about playing the first year. Just get better, and we'll pay you as though you're a playing rookie.
Incredible.
Guys, that's
crazy.
Bro, that's unbelievable. I mean, I think the league minimum at the time was about $230,000, to which they basically said, we will pay you to just get better. We're going to give you that to just get better. Now, that only happens because of a culture that was created in Indianapolis by Tony Dungy.
Wow.
Right. And so Tony really is my miracle story to having to overcome a very serious injury in order to make it to the NFL. And then, I think the miracle in that, guys, is, within the first year of playing, I earned a starting position. And 3 years later, we win a Super Bowl against the Chicago Bears, and none of that happens without that injury.
Wow.
The dream come true. You grew up as a kid, small river town, Hastings, Minnesota, 15,000 people, to playing in front of 101 million people. It really is it really is kind of a pinch yourself moment. And it's kind of its application to faith is profound because we're all on this roller coaster ride of trust, right? It's one of the hardest things that we have to do in our relationship with God. What is it, to put your trust in a divine being that you can't see, right? And you can't, so, and yet all of that hard work and all those years spent in prayer, you kind of just see it being answered in front of you. And that had, I think, a really profound impact on my life as a man of God. And all of the people that were a part of that, and it all comes together in this wonderful moment. And Prince played at halftime.
Oh man,
I remember that game, and it wasn't just because of Prince, but I remember a lot of football games that I watched. But man, it was raining, and he crushed that halftime.
Man,
unlike anything I'd ever seen.
There's a documentary that NFL Films put out. You can watch it on YouTube, and it talks about the production, the halftime show of that Super Bowl. You got to watch it because it from a production perspective, it was a nightmare. I mean, Prince is playing on a clear fiberglass stage in high heels with two dancers that are in high heels. It's pouring. He's got, I think it was something like 4 or 5 different electric guitars that he was using over the course of the set, right?
Wow.
So everything is electric and water is pouring down on it, right? Everywhere. But
not good.
Needless to say, listen, I'll just say this, because I grown up in Minnesota, and Prince being from Minnesota, that was special. When he passed, I had this kind of aha moment. I remember sitting in my office and seeing the news come across, and I realized in that moment, guys, that I had never actually watched the halftime show.
Huh.
Wow.
Because
that makes sense. Yeah. You had something else you were focused on.
Yeah, we were changing uniforms because we were soaked. We were drenched, and that halftime ends up being a 45-minute halftime, right? So it's twice as long, and I got the news and I thought, oh my gosh, I have never actually seen the halftime show for the Super Bowl that I played in, and so I got online and I watched it for the first time, and I was just almost brought to tears because it was just it was so clean, it was sung so well, everything was he was singing Purple Rain in the Rain, and that crowd is so into it. It was just radical and epic. So anyway, all of it comes together, and it just became it was a dream that actually came true, and it's just it's
probably the only thing that could have made it better is if it was Minnesota in the Super Bowl, right? Right. But the fact that you're from Minnesota makes it stand out even more for you, for sure.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Kind of want to transition out of your career. So you had a great career, but you also had some injuries, and most pronounced were you had a lot of concussions during your career in the NFL.
Yes.
And so it's my understanding you actually were kind of forced to an early retirement because of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a unique time in the NFL because concussions were becoming the spotlight injury. And so I think while part of what you just said is true, I guess it is true because of just the nature of the injury. And I had an extensive concussion history. And so the combination of the two made it difficult for me to continue to play without much more risk to my own health. But also, if you think about it from a franchise position, that's a lot of financial risk to take on an individual as well.
Wow. So here you are, you're faced with another challenge in your life. You're done with football, but you still want to be an advocate for football. Obviously it's been great to you, but at the same time, you also want to bring awareness. So to your injuries and some of those things, excuse me, what motivated you to kind of get into being such an advocate for brain trauma and head injuries and keeping the game safe so we all can enjoy it?
Man, was really, it's kind of like, and I know she's played a major role in your guys' life, but Patty, she really became one of my mentors. She had always told me, Ben, uh, when one door closes, pause and look for another to open, and then just keep walking. I mean, her whole thing was just keep walking. Put one foot in front of the other. Where one door closes, pick up your head and look, another door will open. And that's really kind of how I got into advocacy, right? The NFL door closed, and she was giving me this wisdom, man, chin up and just keep walking. And as I began to kind of walk and follow in her footsteps with music and building new relationships, all of a sudden these doors began to open into a philanthropic world of advocacy. And I never really went looking for it. It was just kind of, I think, God's nudge in saying, hey, this is where I want you to be a voice at this time in your life. And so I began to be pursued by different organizations, because I've always been a vulnerable man. I'm I just growing up in a pastor's family, and I think really having a good identity has given me an ability to just be really comfortable in my own shoes, in my own skin. And so I have no problem being vulnerable and talking about fear and talking about the difficulties and the things that I went through. And that made me a really, I think, powerful advocate for people at that time. And that's where the book came out of. And that's where I think a number of opportunities to be a spokesperson came out of.
That's such a good word that Sandy gave you, as far as, when something shuts down, when it feels like you've got nowhere else to go, to just look for that next open door. I feel like that translates to, man, so many different things in life, spiritually, creatively, career-wise. It's a good word.
Well, and it's obviously, what she has overcome in her own life. And I think the key to that is your ability to surrender, your ability to let go of the things that you attach to your own identity, right? Because I think so many football players struggle to transition into real life because their whole identity has been consumed by a sport.
Yeah.
And when you're holding on to something like that so tightly, and when the doors slam shut, oftentimes that grip is what actually pulls you down and creates a lot of problems. And so I think, just through the spiritual mentors I've had in my own life, from my family to people in my other passions, like Sandy, is just this constant reminder of surrendering all trust and control over to somebody bigger and somebody greater than yourself. And when you can do that, now when that door closes, while it may be painful, and while it might not have been what you were hoping for, your identity is connected to something else, and your grip is open. It's like Abraham's hands as he's coming down the mountain. He's gripping Isaac on the way up, and on the way down, he's completely surrendered that son. And it's kind of, I don't know, we got deep there for a second, but that's kind of,
it's good.
To me, that's kind of a key, that's kind of a key position in my life, no matter what I'm going through, is surrender, and how that plays a role.
Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, I got pursued on that. I never went looking to write a book. It was a scary thought, because you're going to put your entire self out into the public, and I wanted to be real careful, because I love football, and I love the game of football, right? And so it's tough because you're going to talk about things that are going to be uncomfortable and that are going to potentially, cause some tension.
Maybe a negative light of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to be real careful, with that. And that also comes in the stages of life that you're in. But we chose, a pretty kind of straightforward, ominous title, Counting the Days While My Mind Slips Away. Because at that point in my life, I had just walked away from football because of the memory issues that I was having. And the brain disease, CTE, that you've heard so much about, was just becoming mainstream media. And so from my perspective, right, back in 2011, was that, oh my gosh, I probably have brain disease.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so there was a lot of fear in that. And, and so out of that, I wrote a song called You Will Always Be My Girls, which I had written for my wife and daughters. And, I co-wrote this song with some great songwriters here in Minnesota, and shelved it for about 6 months, and got asked by the NFL Players Association to speak to Congress. And so I go out to Washington, I speak to Congress, and I walk out the doors, and it's just like mad media. Everybody wanted to hear the story, because in the story to Congress, I tell the story of being on this plane, overwhelmed by emotion, writing this song to my wife and daughters, in case the day ever comes when I don't remember their faces anymore.
Wow.
And so, right. And so interesting that I really felt like the Lord was saying, just wait. And then all of a sudden, release. And so we released that music video, which really tells this emotional story. And NFL and Fox reposted it in a number of platforms, and it just went. And
great song. I remember I had seen it before. I went and I looked it up again before our interview today, and it hit different this time because I've got 2 little girls now. One's 4, or one's almost 4, and one's 9 months. And so I was just like, oh God.
Well, and my wife,
such a good song.
Yeah, and my wife, we had talked about, do we want to hire a female actress to play that role? And I just told the director, I'm like, no, you got to trust me on this. And so that was the first time she's ever been, an actor in anything. And man, if you go back and watch the scenes of her, responding to pictures and completely just, I mean, that was so authentic and real. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, everybody on the set was crying, and it's so interesting because I've come so far since then, guys. Like I got involved in a radical cognitive fitness program that has completely changed my cognitive strengths, and all of the weaknesses that I was having with memory and with executive functioning. All of that has really been healed and has been improved. And so, like, that's why I was saying, like, you go through different stages, and that was a stage where a lot of that content really came out of this crazy question about what's my future going to hold.
I'm just glad to hear you're on the mend and you're doing well, and you're taking that next step and going into another season of your career. And really, it's about the music. A lot of people don't know how great of a singer you are.
Seriously good. Yeah.
I mean,
well,
just
that means a lot coming from you guys.
Well, fantastic vocalist. So you said you grew up in a musical family, mom and dad, grew up in a Methodist church. Was your dad a pastor? He's a Methodist.
Dad's a pastor. Yep.
Yeah. So you kind of grew up with in church singing. Did you ever sing the national anthem as a player? As just curious.
Yes, I did actually. It's funny. My first play in the NFL was as a singer. I got asked to sing. I got asked to sing the national anthem at the first Colts preseason game that I was ever a part of against the Buffalo
Nice.
Bills. And so that was pretty. That was
Did your
pretty cool.
teammates heckle you at all? I'm just curious because I know when
They
I
had
sang,
no idea.
really. And so were
That's
they
awesome.
like, "Wow, where'd this come from?"
Yeah, I mean, listen, and you were about to share a story. I want to hear it because I'm sure we can find common ground on this. Like you always
sure we
get
can.
teased. You always get teased, though. You always get heckled, right?
Yeah.
And then you open your mouth, and people
Right.
go, "What?" You
Yeah.
know, and honestly, like, you know, the nice thing about being a singing football player is that, you know, you automatically lower the bar. Like nobody, you know, like it's different for you guys because there's like this expectation. But like when I get introduced as, you know, a singing Super Bowler, typically it's just kind of like, okay, here we go, another. You know what I mean? So the bar's already like, you know. So all I got to do is just singing key.
No, my only opportunity to do that was in high school. I wasn't an athlete like you were, but I remember walking out to the middle of the field with my uniform on and my helmet underneath my arm and singing the national anthem and
That's awesome.
realizing that that's probably the most stardom I'm ever going to have on the field.
Yeah.
At that time. But you were actually nominated for a Dove Award in
Right.
2012, right?
I was, yeah. That was a surprise. I did a Christmas album. I was on tour with Jim Brickman at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I alongside of Jim put out a Christmas album, and just kind of, I remember Mike Atkins, who you guys know real well. I was still working with Mike at the time, and I remember him kind of giving me a call saying, "Well, you got nominated," and that was I think David Crowder actually beat me out that year. So.
Wow, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting story, you know. And as you guys know, it's not easy. It's not an easy industry to. I thought that nothing would be more difficult than professional sports, but the music entertainment industry it's such a challenge because there's no equation to success.
Mm-hmm.
It's
really
just
isn't.
grinding, and praying that you're one of the few that get the right opportunities at the right time that allow you to make it a career. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a challenge. Whereas in sports, there are equations, there are things that you can do, and if you do these things, you are going to give yourself you know, a better opportunity to be on the field playing, you know, and it just, you can do all those things in music, and it never it never happens, right?
So true.
I will never forget, I was asked to speak in Anderson, Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
at a youth rally, and the girl leading worship at the youth rally was at the time Jen Helvering.
Wow.
And Sandy Patty's daughter, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm there, and I'm doing my thing as a Colt, and afterwards, this, I mean, overwhelmingly excited blonde lady rocking a Peyton Manning's jersey comes running over to me, and she is freaking out. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm such a big Colts fan. You don't even understand. You know, would you please sign this for me? And I'm like, no problem. Who do I make it out to? And she says, Sandy Patty. And I go, I go, wait, what did you just say? You know, because I grew up in the church. My mom sang all of Sandy's stuff. I said, what did you just say? And she said, Sandy Patty. Oh, you guys, I just lost it. And I handed her back the pen and paper and just said, no, you need to sign this for me right now.
Yeah.
And that's,
So I was looking up some things on YouTube earlier, and I found a video of you singing for Muhammad Ali.
oh yeah.
Dude, was
That was
that
unbelievable.
awesome? Did you get to like meet him?
Yeah, so guys, that's like one of those. So
I mean,
that was
that
at
is
an event.
so
That
cool.
was at a fundraising event in Arizona that brought together some of the world's greatest athletes in order to raise money. And so I got asked to I did a concert the night before, and then the following night was a 60th birthday celebration for Muhammad Ali, and I was asked to sing. So I sang this off-Broadway song called Diamonds, which is it's a really cool song about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is I rewrote the third verse to mimic his fight against Joe Frazier.
Nice.
It was, man, it was, I get chills kind of thinking about it. So Johnny Bench, who is the greatest catcher in baseball of all time, is the one that introduces me to come out and sing for Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali is like one table in front of me with his family. And then all of these other tables right over here, Andre Agassi, Steffi Graf, Alonzo Mourning, and Tony Hawk, and the list. Oh yeah, the list just goes on and on. I mean, that's who's in the room, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Thornstan. And so I get to serenade Muhammad Ali. And
were you scared out of your mind?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it was really intimidating. And I have this picture in my basement. You might have seen it, Jeff. You just didn't realize what you were looking at.
Yeah.
But the picture is of me singing, and then it's of his reaction at the table. And I'll never forget this. When I started singing the third verse that I rewrote, it's the final round, just before the bell, when Frazier says no more. Right? I wrote those words, and as I'm singing that, his hand comes off the table and reaches out towards me like this, and I have a picture of that in the basement.
Wow.
That was pretty crazy.
That is cool.
That was pretty
cool. So he really was responding to that. He emotionally to that. It connected.
Yeah, it connected. I was like, oh my gosh. So those types of moments, and I know you guys have them too, right? Where you just get these God incidences where it's like, oh my gosh, as VeriTalks, did we just get asked to do that? And I've those experiences are so special, it's just incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's what music does. It breaks barriers. It crosses boundaries. It connects young and old. Tell us about what you're doing now. Tell us about the group you're singing with and this new venture, this new idea you've got.
Yeah. So kind of a couple fun things. One is that as I got back to Minnesota, which has a really strong music scene, I got introduced to a guy named Mick Sterling, who's a Minnesota Music Hall of Famer. He came out the same time that Prince did. Didn't have Prince's success, but it had some really strong blues success. And we put a show together called an Andy and Bing Christmas. And it's the full Christmas albums of Andy Williams and Bing Crosby. And so I grew up listening. I mean, we all did, but I just didn't really put two together. Like I didn't realize, who Andy Williams, like how profound he was. I mean, the guy sold about, I think, 110 million units over his career. That's insane. And I just got to looking online, like who's doing Andy Williams, and nobody's doing Andy Williams. And so I put together an Andy Williams show, which has been a lot of fun, and been doing that for a number of years here in Minnesota. And then just about a year and a half ago, I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine, a guy named Mark Masry. And if you've never heard Mark Masry, guys,
Oh, he's legit, man.
Mark Masry is legit.
He is so good.
So good. You know,
Yeah.
multi-Juno Award winner, Grammy nominated. He had toured with Jim Brickman a couple years before I did, and we became friends. And I was asking him about how to do this Andy Williams thing the right way. And about 30 minutes in, I felt like I felt this prompting. I just have to tell you, I think it was a God thing. I just felt like God was like, ask Mark if he wants to start a group. And I said, I'm not going to ask Mark Masry if he wants to start a group. And he came back and he said, he's like, no, ask him. And I'm like, oh, all right. And I said, Mark, what do you think about starting an international singing group? And he just started laughing. And I said, what's so funny? And he said, if you knew how many people for the last 2 months have pursued me to build a group, labels and this, and I've just said, no, I'm not interested. And last night I was praying and I asked God, I said, all right, if you really want me to be in a group, you have to make it clear and you have to make it quick. And here you are the next day asking me. So he said yes. And he said, I think I know who I'm supposed to call. And that's a guy named Andre Venter from South Africa. So Mark called Andre, same situation. It was almost like an answer to prayer. Andre was in a very successful group like you guys have called Romans. Romans was a Sony UK product that sold, I think they sold over 1 million copies in their career. Andre's a beautiful baritone singer, former semi-pro rugby player from South Africa. So he and I have a lot in
common there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But so that's kind of the story of Reborn. Reborn has just, it's young. It's just all, it's a pure ministry-based group. We feel really called into men's ministry. And so we've just started doing this. We just sang at the NRB conference in Nashville in February. No real expectation, just kind of praying it through, and if the Lord wants to use it for ministry, He will. And to do something like this so late is, there's a lot of hurdles. Like if you're looking at it from an industry perspective, and so we just decided to throw that away. And Mark's 45, Andre's 42, I'm 39 this year, and so we're just kind of at this place where we love to sing.
I'm this
39 years old. 39. Oh gosh.
I saw you hesitate on that. You were like, I'm sitting
39.
almost 40.
Yeah. So, but it's I think originality was a big part of what we wanted to do. I think we really want to write, and this came out of spending some time with Bill, because what I wanted to do was make sure, number one, is it worth even putting any time and money into this? Because as you guys know, it takes a lot of time and is expensive. And
yes.
So I called up Bill Gaither and told him the story, and we met with Bill and sang for him, and that really kind of helped confirm that you guys have what it takes vocally. Now you have to figure out, and really we should talk to you guys about this wisdom, but how do you live life together?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you don't. You live apart. That's how you do.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, there's and so we've had to figure that out, and the international thing is tough. I mean, Andre's in South Africa and Mark's in Toronto, Canada, and so we've been trying to get together once a month for about 4 or 5 days, and that's when we'll try and book a couple of churches in different locations.
Yeah.
We love to sing. We love to write. So use us any way you see fit, and let's just see what happens.
That's awesome. Man, we can't thank you enough for taking the time and speaking with us, sharing your story. It's been
and before Andrew does that, if you don't mind, Ben, tell us where people can find your music. and how they can
Um,
find you, get connected with you and what you're doing.
Thank you for asking that question. So, rebornmusicgroup.org is where you can find Reborn's story in our current music. We're just getting ready to kind of launch our first album. Ben-Utecht.com has information about my speaking and all of that. And
Awesome.
that's pretty much it. I'm on all the socials. So
Yeah, and if you haven't had, we want to let churches and people that are watching this, want to encourage them to have you come speak and share your testimony, saying,
yeah,
I think it'd be really awesome.
thank you. Appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah, we'll post a couple links to some of those videos and things we were talking about on this
Great.
video. So check those out.
Thank you. Awesome.
Cool. So I got 2 questions to wrap up.
Okay.
So the first one, which this one's hard. This is hard. So you can change it up. But the question is, who is your favorite singer? Now, if you can't pick one, you can give us just one of your favorite singers. Doesn't have to be the top.
Favorite singer. I feel like I kind of need to say Sandy so that we don't get in trouble.
we did talk about her a lot. I think you could probably say somebody else. I think she.
Yeah.
It's God, do I have an all-time? I don't.
That's hard.
I have such variety in my music library. I would probably say, without a doubt, in the crooner category, it would be an Andy Williams of old, and a Michael Bublé currently. Pop classical. I grew up in the Josh Groban era. When his voice came out, I don't care. I mean, it was the right voice at the right time. Jeremy Camp, on the contemporary Christian side, is probably my all-time favorite. And
Have you seen his movie yet?
Yes, I saw
I
it.
believe, yeah.
And I've known Jeremy for a long time, and just such a authentic artist. I mean, he's the real deal, and that's what I love. I love that. Production-wise, though, I love For King and Country's production.
Oh man.
And their performance art.
Rock on.
And they kind of come out. They kind of come out of that Imagine Dragons, out of a couple of that stuff. If I was younger again and could do what I mean, that performance art, I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What is something that you are deeply grateful for?
Oh, daughters.
Yes.
Man.
Yeah, man.
And my wife, just the women in my life. So grateful for on so many different levels. I think my wife has been, she's really the stronghold of the family, and I think her perspective and her strength and balance and beauty, it's just profound, on my life. And girls, it's an interest, I always thought that I was going to have boys, and I just, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that. But as I've just been a dad of all girls, there's such a profound emotional responsibility that I've learned being a father of girls, because I'm the one chance for them to. I'm the opportunity for them to understand what defines a man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And how does a man treat a woman?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm the first and foundational reflection of that.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think, something that I've really tried to take very seriously.
Well, man, we can't thank you enough.
No problem.
You were
Anytime.
awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to just hang with
Of
us for a
course.
little while. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Wow, guys, that was a really great interview. Fascinating stuff. I know that I'm a Colts fan now. But Andrew, can you tell me a little bit about kind of what you thought about that interview?
That was a fun interview. I really enjoyed it. It was cool hearing about some of the experiences he's had as an athlete, but then also the seasons of life he's walked through after playing with the Colts. And it was really, I loved hearing him when he talked about the song that he wrote for his daughters. And that really spoke to me. I've got 2 little girls, and he wrote a song thinking that he might one day not remember who they are and want to be able to tell them something. It was one of those like, man, I can't even imagine type moments.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty cool hearing him talk about that, and also hearing how he is, sort of recovered from all of the head trauma that he had experienced and the things he's done to help develop his brain. And it's pretty incredible to hear some of those personally from him.
Yeah, very inspiring. Very, very inspiring interview. Good job, guys. Good job. Well,
Thank you.
if you are enjoying these episodes, do us a favor, click the red subscribe button down below. And also right below that, you're also going to find a click to our Patreon page. If you would check that page out as well. We've got a bunch of bonus content, vocal singing tips, behind the scenes footage, a bunch of fun things, and we're always interacting with people on there. We also do monthly hangouts with just the 5 of us and our patrons on there, so just check it out. We'd love to connect with you on there, and you can always follow us on our other social media channels at VeriTalks5. And until we see you again next week, here is to your next big idea.
Ta-da!